Welcome, everybody, to Email Never Sleeps. Today, we're talking about the power of storytelling and personalization in email. And I've invited my guest, Toni Rexroth, who is probably an amazing storyteller in email or a veteran in this industry. Toni, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience, give a little bit about your background and why you chose today's topic?
Okay, so my name's Toni Rexroth. Some of my friends and coworkers tend to call me T-Rex for obvious reasons. Um,
Cool.
and I actually started out in the editing world in magazines. That's what I always thought I wanted to do. And so I started with that storytelling. How do
Mhm.
you craft a story in an article, in a project, in an online blog, maybe? And how do you bring the reader in? How do you engage them?
Okay.
Then email marketing kind of came in. I won't tell you how old I am, but it wasn't there when I started.
Yep.
And we started doing that. And it just landed in the role of the editors. We had what we called marketorial. So I took what I had learned in editorial with that storytelling and applied it to my email marketing and discovered that I liked email marketing better than I did editing. So I made the switch
Yeah.
into email marketing, and
Yeah.
since then have worked for a wide variety of companies. A lot of them are enthusiasts, so people who are really invested in a product or an opportunity. And
Mhm.
I've really learned to love and develop that storytelling aspect that you have
And
to bring into something that someone really loves.
sure.
But also, how do you bring that into something that you have to have in your life, but maybe isn't a love?
Yeah. Yeah. So we were chatting a little bit before this, and
Mhm.
maybe you have a different definition of storytelling than I do. I'd like for you to define for our audience what storytelling means to you.
For me, it's kind of, I think, goes back to that editorial, that, love of books. It's
Mhm.
bringing them on a journey. So
Mm.
really, how do you find the beginning of where your customer, where are they starting? Say they're the hero of your story. Where
Mm.
are they beginning? And then what trials do you bring them through? What
Mhm.
frustrations do you point out? And point out that you have a way to help them overcome that hurdle, that journey in their life, and then get them to the end. How do they rescue the princess, or
Right. Right.
or
Right.
achieve that goal that they have? How do you bring them on that
Yeah.
story? And
Yeah.
how do you identify their story rather than your story?
Wow. Okay. I agree. My definition of storytelling is, to me, every brand has something to say.
Mhm.
And I think one of the big things that we all have learned coming out of COVID is that we need one another, but we also want to feel this personal connection to the brands that we deal with.
Yes.
Look, I don't care if you sell socks or subscriptions or musical instruments or travel or whatever. People today want to feel this connection, and there is a story to be told other than here's this, or here's a little tidbit on our blog, or here's something else. You sort of have to set the scene, and people
Mhm.
want that, crave that, need that to feel that sort of connection to the brand. And I think that can be done through effective storytelling, right?
Yeah.
But also for the emotionality of it all. And I've been a huge proponent, even pre-COVID, to storytelling in email because I think that's going to differentiate the brand from just being, I'm going to get a discount, or I'm just going to get this in my inbox 3 times a day or once a week, um, type of stuff. So tell me, you said you fell in love with email and you fell in
Yes.
love, sort of with this storytelling aspect. What are some components? Our audience is composed of many different segments of
Mhm.
people. What are some of the things that, as you sort of work with companies today, that you look for to draw this story out and then bring it to life in email?
I think I kind of take it back to, I'd always tell a story about, when I was a kid and my mom would read books to me. She
Hmm.
had a book that was her favorite children's book to read, and she loved this book.
Yeah.
We didn't. Mom shows, we were like, "Okay, we'll do it." And I think too often that's what companies do. There's a story that they've fallen in love with, and they want the people who receive the email. They want their customers to love that story, so that's the story they tell.
Yeah.
Or the second book that she would pull out is she pulled out a book and she loved the book, so she would change the character's name to my sister's name, hoping that we would then love the book because we were in
Nice.
it. It was personalized.
Nice. Nice.
And I think that's the other trap that they fall
Yeah.
into is they'll love the story if I put their name in it, which
Mhm.
is just that top layer of personalization that it's it will draw you in. The first few times we heard the story, it was fascinating.
Right.
After that, it didn't anymore.
Yeah.
So how do you find the story that your customer wants to hear? What is the thing that excites them about your brand?
Mhm.
And it may be the basics. It may be the thing that you've talked about all the time. And you're like, yes, but we discovered this new thing. Our software does this brand new thing, and we're
Mhm.
really excited about it. But if that's not the story that brings in your customers,
Yeah.
you have to kind of
Yeah.
step back and say, okay, that's not the story that I need to tell.
Yeah.
I think that's hard.
And that is really hard. And I remember years and years ago, I worked with a client that was in telecommunications, right? Which
Mhm.
can't be any more potentially landmined with stories, right? One of the things that we did in order to draw out something was we went to their customer service center and
Mhm.
listened in on sales calls. We also listened in on customer service calls, people who were calling in with issues. Then we looked across all of their social aspects to kind of get, or their social channels to kind of get like, what are people really talking about that we could formulate a story. And the same similar happened to a restaurant chain that I worked with, right? And we were able to write it. I know you probably hate this word, write a script, right? Of how we tell that story because that's where people were interested in. And I always tell everybody, whether you're new in this industry or the C suite, it's not always about you.
Mhm.
Right?
Exactly.
You can't be the only voice in the room. You have to learn from people and then make it about them because that's what they're talking about. And that's what I think about when I think about a story so I can make that connection. Have you ever done primary research or have you ever done like research with primary focus groups around that, or is that outside?
I've done some.
Okay.
What I've done primarily there is when I was in larger companies and they already had the data and I was able to dive into it.
Okay.
I've not been able to do the questions on my own, though I would love
Yeah.
to. I am the person though that will go to friends, cousins, aunts. I will ask the random person I meet on the street.
Yeah.
I stop and see somebody is putting on a pair of socks. I ask, "Oh, do you find important about socks?" I will
Yeah.
ask them that odd question. And I thankfully live in an area where that's not considered completely weird. To talk to
Nice,
strangers,
nice.
because I really wanna get into their head and see why they really enjoy it. Again, like you
Mhm,
said, though, customer service. I think
mhm,
that's an area that most people overlook. I love
mhm,
working in small companies because they talk to each other more, but when you get into the larger companies, things get siloed.
mhm,
And so
mhm.
you're just looking with the marketing group, what you're looking at. You don't talk to customer service. You don't talk to maybe the engineer. You don't
Yeah,
talk to and I think it's really important to have that open communication. What are they hearing and from the customer,
mhm.
but also what are you doing? Because they can always tell you, if you tell them, "Hey, I'm creating this journey," they'll
Yeah,
go, that might cause a problem with what we hear in
good,
customer service." And I
okay.
think we don't talk enough between groups at companies.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. And, you know, believe it or not, I always try to tell people that we're all going after the same customer, right?
Yes.
Whether you're in social, whether you're in direct mail, whether you're in email, whether you're in other forms of digital, right? Let's work together to make sure that there's a cohesive message,
Mhm.
story, tone, whatever, across all of our efforts, right? So that there's no siloing. How do you write this narrative? What's your breakdown in your process? I'm curious.
Um, I'm I think, a very visual person. So,
Mhm.
I've done everything from the design to the writing to the photography, actually.
Okay.
Um, so my process really is to um, dive into the data first, talk to everyone, just write down notes
Mhm.
and pretend that I either sometimes I know nothing about it, which is
Yeah.
actually kind of nice, or
Yeah.
pretend I know nothing about whatever the product is, and pretend and really, I guess, dive into being that character. It's kind of like acting in a way. I kind of see it.
Mhm.
You're
Mm.
becoming the customer and really
Yeah.
write down then what are their frustrations? What are they looking for? What do they want? And then
Mhm.
design I use PowerPoint or whatever. I'll design fake emails, fake journeys with just
Mhm.
basic information. I lay it out,
Sure.
uh, to
Sure.
what I'm looking for. But the important part, I think, is once you have done that, you take it back to someone else. Take it back to the customer service people. It may not be I've gotten some surprised looks when I've sent it to them or brought
Mhm.
it to them, but bring it
Mhm.
back to that other person to look at so that you have another eye on it.
Mhm. One of the brands, and I've mentioned these guys before in the past, and I know few people that work there, that I believe tells a story or at least talks about the brand in a unique way, not only visually, but in their in what they write and content is
Mhm.
Patagonia. And I'm sure you're very familiar with Patagonia in Wyoming, where you live. And
Yes.
I've always had sort of admired the way that they use not fake imagery, right? They actually use
Mhm.
imagery of people that are using their products. And I'm sure that there's other companies out there that do it. I'm certainly not the demographic for that, for Patagonia, for any of one of those types of companies. But whenever I get an email from them, it's very interesting of how I can relate to them.
Yes.
Despite all of their amazing environmental efforts, from the get-go, right? I am immediately drawn in from the things that they do. And it doesn't end with the first one or two emails. It's consistent. And there are lots of brands out there doing it
Mhm.
that sort of have this ongoing narrative. And oh, by the way, we sell stuff. Or oh, by the way, here's something for you, right? And it's very non-invasive and very it's refreshing. I think it's
It's
refreshing.
also it's also authentic, and I think
Mhm.
that's something that at this point I know AI wasn't the thing we were gonna talk about, but I think there's a danger as we start maybe passing off some of the storytelling to AIs because like you said, Patagonia, it's authentic. You look at the imagery and you
Yeah.
can see yourself in it.
Yep. Yep.
And, I have some of the AI images that have come out, we've looked at them and I have someone say, "Oh yeah, no, that looks like someone from Wyoming." And I
Yeah.
looked at it and went, "Why are they wearing an Australian hat? What's a poncho got to do with anything? What kind of a saddle is this?"
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Right.
being from Wyoming, I look at it and I go, "This isn't even close to right." But someone from New
Yeah.
York looked at it and went, "Oh yeah,
Yep.
that's totally a cowboy from Wyoming." And I
Totally,
think that's
totally.
our other dangers. Patagonia does a great job of it's authentic. You look at it and you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, this guy camps."
I
Um,
yeah, I recently did a podcast on AI and
yeah.
email, and so we talk about this, but I went and I visited a site the other day that was completely AI created,
Mhm.
especially in the use of AI imagery, and it sort of reminded me of the Hunger Games,
Yes.
like the people inside the Hunger Games with like green and yellow outfits and funky ass hair, right? And you're like, what in the world does this have to do with X, right? It's just weird, and I agree. I use AI I write my original thing and then I sort of let it refine it. I still use Grammarly. I
Mhm.
still use a lot of different tools. But I don't think it's going to replace and understand the brands that are out there, which I think is a good thing
Yes.
for you and definitely a good thing
And
for me.
especially in the storytelling aspect because
Absolutely.
AI
Absolutely.
can't tell the story, that authentic story that you can, that
Mhm.
somebody can put themselves in that position. And
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, so if you're looking to cut corners, in your email marketing program, that's not where I would choose to do it.
The other topic you wanted to chat about was
Mhm.
that of personalization. And I've
Yes.
got a very strong opinion about personalization. And everyone defines personalization different ways, right? Some
Mhm.
people would say it's not just about first name, or it's about like what Toni wants versus what Andrew wants versus what other people want to see in their emails. And it's a lot harder to actually pull off
Yes.
personalization in email than it appears to be. Everyone seems to make it easy, but it's not.
Mhm.
It's not. So I'm curious. You brought up the whole storytelling and personalization. So tell me how you define personalization and how you see that sort of moving the cart forward.
So I think that the first thing when you're looking at storytelling and personalization is what kind of a story are you telling? And so therefore
Mhm.
what kind of personalization can you do?
Mhm.
If you're selling socks, that's different from if I worked for a crochet magazine for a while where I mean I was recognized when I was out walking. So I could use someone's, first name or put in information I knew about them in an email and they didn't think anything of it.
Right.
I can't imagine if I got an email that said, "Hi Tony, we just want to
Mhm.
talk to you about your car insurance."
Mm.
Um, they track you everywhere, but I would
Mm.
feel so put off with them knowing my name. I'm sure they do, but
Yeah.
that's not a place where you want them knowing your name.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so kind of that personalization according to where how well you know them,
Yeah.
but then of course taking it that next step farther.
Mhm.
So often now with personalization, it's tracking you through the website. What have you clicked on? What are you interested in? And you know, because I look at all my emails with that email eye, I've
Mhm.
caught things so many times. One time I got an email about a pair of shoes I'd looked at, and they
Yeah.
were letting me know that the price had dropped, and
Okay.
they were now $20 more expensive than the last time I'd seen them. So, I think, we have to be careful in that personalization to really I
Yeah.
think it's too easy for us. "Oh, they looked at this, something changed, send them an email."
Yeah.
Again, that idea, that storytelling, we're forgetting that it's an actual person at the other end of
Yeah.
the personalization. And how do we make this something that I think of them as my friend. How would I help this person who is my friend? Not, what's a lever I can make more money with?
You have said you have I agree with everything that you say, and I'll wait until the wrap up to give what I think about personalization. But I want to focus on one more thing. What do you think in years off of your years of experience that the combination and the use of storytelling and the use of personalization, what is there an exact amount? Is there something that is the silver bullet? Because people love silver bullets. I don't believe in them, but
Right.
people want to know, well, what should I do? Right. And I'm just curious as to what your thoughts are.
There isn't a silver bullet. There will never be a silver bullet, but there are better ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And I think that with storytelling, it's that combination of, not sometimes we think about them too clinically. So,
Hmm.
how do I tell a good story?
Hmm.
Not how do I tell a story about this person?
Hmm.
And if you have a way, or if you look at it by telling a story about that person, you'll
Hmm.
be able to at least get right close to that perfect line because
Right.
you'll be looking at what kind of a personalization, what does this person want? And
Right.
I think that's the key to personalization is what does this person want?
Hmm.
Not what's their first name, what's their data, how many kids do they have? It's what do they want?
Right. Right. All right. So we've got a couple minutes left. I want to kind of do a quick wrap up. If you had to sort of give two or three points
Mhm.
that you want everybody to take away, try, think about, go back to their teams and discuss, what would those points be?
I think the first point is who is that person? Who is your customer?
Hmm.
And I know that gets talked about a lot, but I don't think it's given enough emphasis. You can't tell the
Hmm.
story that's personalized to them if you don't know who they are.
Right.
I've seen people who will pull a photo off of Google somewhere to have on there. Give them a name. Give them
Hmm.
hobbies, even if it has nothing. If you sell, I don't, if you're selling chat software, but give them a hobby
Yeah.
because then you can know who that person is.
Yeah.
And then number two, go talk to the other people in the company, your customer service,
Right.
and find out again who that person is.
Right.
And then craft that story and have fun. I
Yeah.
think that's another thing that people don't do enough
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
you're telling a fun story to somebody that you know and like. Have some fun with it. I don't
Right.
care if you're, B2B, B2C, have fun.
Mhm. Um, my key takeaways are as follows. Whether you write a story about your company or about a customer or about a journey or about whatever, the one thing you have to be is authentic. The one thing you have to be is you're not going after that click, you're going after that eye, and you're competing for those eyes across all of your other competitors and all of your other brands that person reads on the other end. And so there's this notion of authenticity, and then there's this notion of barfy authenticity, right?
Yeah.
Creepiness, right? That kind of borders into the personalization, right? And I always use this in front of clients and in front of people that I've talked to for years. Imagine you're meeting me at a public location. The first thing you're going to address me is, hello, Andrew, or hello, Mr. Kordek, or hello, sir. You're not going to address me as hello, Andrew Kordek. My name is Toni, and I'm with da 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 da. Right? There's that that is personalization taken to a creepy level. Imagine that, like you and I are having a conversation right now. That's to me what personalization is, without being overtly personal. That's a hard line, right? A lot of people will be like, come on, Andrew, right? Like, we know this, but how do we get there? And I'm like, that's where the testing involves, right? And they need to have two distinct, unique testing plans to say, we're going to show a lot of personalization versus hardly any. And how does that sort of play out? Or we're going to tell a very authentic story of the story that we believe our customers or our subscribers want versus what we want to tell. And we have to be okay with whatever the results are,
Mhm.
because ultimately that human being on the other end is the one that's driving and driving our program. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Look, we've talked a little bit about storytelling, and I'm sure we could probably talk about stuff ad nauseum, right, Toni?
Yes.
And personalization. But look, I wanted to thank you for taking your time out today, sharing your knowledge with people that watch and listen to this session. Everybody, Toni's details are going to be at the end of this. You can reach out to her on LinkedIn. We'll have everything that guys need to get a hold of her, or if you have any additional questions, you can certainly post it and we can get Toni to respond. So Toni, thank you so much for your time today. I truly, truly appreciate it. Um, and
Thank you
until
for
next
inviting
time,
me.
no, thank you. Until next time, everybody, keep doing email the way that you're doing, but just do it a little bit better.